Well, Donald Trump may be worried about the wrong Comey after all. It may not be James Comey and the manufactured indictment against him as former FBI director using seashells on a beach that gets Donald Trump in the end. It may be a little followed lawsuit brought by Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter. All she was doing was working as a prosecutor and toiling away apolitically in the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, but she was prosecuting cases like Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, along with others. And she was canned 1 month before Todd Blanche, the current acting U.S. Attorney General, went in to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump's buddy, who's a convicted child sex trafficker, about Trump and Epstein and the child sex trafficking. And she was canned a month before, and my working theory at the time is it was to get rid of Maureen Comey so that he could go in and do that interview and give that immunity to a child sex trafficker without being encumbered with any facts or any law or anything that happened in the trial or any of the witnesses. He didn't want Maureen Comey as an earworm sitting next to him when he interviewed or gave softball questions to Ghislaine Maxwell. He wanted her out of the way. But that wrecked her career. She just wanted to be a prosecutor. And now that lawsuit is moving forward in federal court despite the fact the Department of Justice has been fighting, kicking and screaming to send it off into a world where you and I would never hear the results. Some sort of administrative law proceeding with the Merit Systems Protection Board. Screw that. It's going to be in federal district court, United States Court in New York. And when the discovery process opens up in that case, when she gets to the bottom of why she was fired and that curious timing of her being fired a month before the Ghislaine Maxwell statement, we're going to get to the bottom of the Epstein account. This could be the can opener that we've always needed. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Top line, headline, sort of boring. Maureen Comey gets to keep her employment case in federal court. More interesting. Maureen Comey, prosecutor of Ghislaine Maxwell, fired 30 days before that interview, perhaps as part of the cover-up scandal by the Department of Justice, is able to have a public forum for her wrongful termination case because a federal judge, Judge Furman, just said so. Let's get down to it. Thanks for being on MeidasTouch. Hit the free subscribe button. Come over to Legal AF YouTube channel and do the exact same thing. When Maureen Comey was fired, as the judge reported in his opinion and order, they sent her an email. Came from the HR department at the Department of Justice. And it didn't say she was being fired under the Civil Service Reform Act. It said she was being fired under Article 2 of the Constitution and the president's power to fire attorneys general, or fire U.S. attorneys or assistant U.S. attorneys. They relied, the Department of Justice and Trump, on Article 2. And for the judge, that makes a big difference because as they're arguing, this is all covered, Judge, under the Civil Service Reform Act, and she should be forced into the Merit Systems Protection Board appellate process if you don't like the result. The judge says, we got one big problem. You didn't cite to the Civil Service Reform Act, and therefore you didn't exercise your powers under it. There's a whole procedural framework, statutory framework around it, whole scheme, and you didn't use it. You skipped a step. See, this Department of Justice is known for sloppiness, for cutting corners, for missing deadlines, for misstating law or not even citing any law, being defiant to federal judges. And so does it surprise you that they screwed up their termination letter, giving her the power to stay in court? Now, in her complaint, which she filed several months ago, she claims that at least at present, she believes she was fired because she's James Comey's daughter, because there's an assumption about her political leanings, but she's an exemplary employee. She'd never been sanctioned. She'd only been rewarded and awarded and complimented. She was just given one of the top new prosecution cases just a day or two before she was fired. She successfully prosecuted Puff Daddy. She successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell and put her 20 years behind bars for child sex trafficking. And I'm sure she would have done the same to Epstein. And her career, she just wanted to be doing her job, toiling away at the U.S. Attorney's Office, was dashed because, why? Trump doesn't like Comey. Laura Loomer, that right-wing social media influencer, office wife of Donald Trump, she got on her radar, and Laura Loomer started loomerizing or loomering her, or whatever it's called, with constant harangue of social media posts. Why is James Comey's daughter working in the government? Why is she in the Department of Justice? Why is her husband and a son-in-law, and he's a lawyer, and he's in the Department of Justice? I mean, it's just like, I'm sorry to make it simple. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like a mosquito that is, you just want to, and then end it. So she gets fired. Now, my working theory, and I'm not the only one. I was just on with Katie Fang, a good friend of mine. And in fact, I'm going to show you a clip here in a minute. And we came to the same conclusion. Look at the timeline. Trump, from the time he takes office, thinks that the thing he's really going to fix once and for all is get out from under the Epstein scandal. Of course, that backfires because he's so heavy-handed and ham-fisted, and how he uses the Department of Justice and how he uses the FBI to cover up. We know how he could have come clean if he had nothing to hide. Day one, release all the files. Day two, have his Department of Justice appoint a special counsel independent from the Department of Justice to investigate everyone and everything that's listed in there as a legitimate lead. Number three, step three, have the FBI interview the survivors, meet with them, commune with them, learn from them. Step four, start the prosecutions. Donald Trump did none of that. Did a whole bunch of hiding documents to this day, using his FBI's credibility, now shot, to try to cover up. Uses Department of Justice credibility, now shot to try to cover up. And then you got Maureen Comey. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of MeidasTouch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way. So in that timeline, remember, Trump was trying to, he's so in the dumps. His reputation is so destroyed that Trump actually thought that Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted child sex trafficker, would help rehabilitate his reputation. How low you must sink in order to believe that. And so a month before, but I'm sure they were planning it, because there were likely conversations between Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General who conducted the interview of Ghislaine Maxwell in her jail at the time in Florida, and David O. Marcus, who Katie Fang knows as well from working down in Miami. They were in discussions. I'm sure they know each other. They've been on podcasts together about a pardon and getting her immunity. He had to have negotiated with David O. Marcus to get her immunity for talking to the government. Now, if I'm in the government and I didn't handle the trial and I don't know the facts of the case, this was a 2-month trial against Ghislaine Maxwell, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents and witness testimony. If I don't know that like the back of my hand, I bring in the trial lawyer who does, to keep the witness honest. Because if she starts bullshitting, you want somebody in the room that can raise their hand or hit Blanche in the side or write on a piece of paper if she's lying. This is what really happened. This is what this witness said. This is what this evidence was presented to the jury said. Here's the exhibit. Here's her signature. Here's her email. He didn't want that. He wanted to go in intentionally, willfully blind, head firmly buried in sand. But you got to get rid of Maureen Comey to do it, so you fire her. Here's Katie Fang and me on my show, The Intersection, kicking that concept around. Play it. Maureen Comey it was a good day for Comey, and Maureen Comey convinced a federal judge that her being vindictively dismissed as a career apolitical prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. She was the one that brought Ghislaine Maxwell to justice, prosecutor for Epstein, but she got Loomered. Laura Loomer decided that she was the daughter of James Comey and she couldn't have her own career. And so she got fired. And then when she brought her vindictive prosecution, her vindictive dismissal case, Trump actually had the balls to say, oh, no, you should go through the Merit Systems Protection Board or the National Labor Relations Board. You mean the two entities you destroyed and there aren't anymore?
Well, what I thought was spectacular about Judge Furman's order and opinion today, greenlighting her case against the DOJ in that space, right, in that federal court, was the intentionality behind Judge Furman writing all of the complimentary things about the sterling reputation of Maureen Comey, because she fits the definition of being summarily dismissed. I mean, she literally was dismissed by way of an email that invoked the executive powers of the president to be able to allegedly do what he did. The thing that really gets me is twofold. One, I am grateful for that win for Maureen Comey. I think it opens the floodgates for other people who are also illegally terminated to chase down their justice, number one. Number two, I think it also, what it effectively does is reinforce the following, which is the timing of her termination speaks directly to the deployment of Todd Blanche to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, because he went less than a week after she was fired. And Maureen Comey was the lead trial prosecutor in the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell in the criminal case of Jeffrey Epstein. And she knew those cases. She knew that evidence better than anybody. And she would have been the natural, logical person to send to do the limited immunity Queen for a Day meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, because she would have known her bullshit meter would have been powerful, right? And she would have been able to say, you're lying, Ghislaine. I know what the evidence is, right? But they intentionally sent dumbass Blanche because Todd is the perfect patsy for it, because he knows that if he goes in blind, he doesn't sit there and he can't gauge the truth. He's just going to sit there and, like I said, do each other's nail and braid each other's hair is what they were doing. And then he said, oh, check the box, met with her. Now she can go to Club Fed, which is why I like this illegal termination lawsuit, because I think there's a colorable argument, Michael, that Comey's lawyers could explore the why, right, of it. And maybe there is an Epstein link to it.
Yeah.
I think it exists. I think
like
all
that.
roads are leading back to Epstein on this one.
Look, you and I have agreed from the very beginning. She was the sacrificial lamb to get her out of the way so that when, as you said, when Blanche went and did the interview, he didn't have her as an earworm in his ear saying she's lying to you, because he didn't want to know if she was lying to him, because that's not his purpose of going to interview. You know, the 5-year prosecutor for the case who knows every document like the back of her hand and every witness statement you don't bring to the meeting. So top line is Maureen Comey has a interesting employment litigation matter. Get down to the nitty gritty, the molecular level, Maureen Comey's the key, because if she starts going after the Department of Justice, where she worked for all the documents between the Department of Justice and the White House, between Trump and Todd Blanche and the rest, about Ghislaine Maxwell, about Epstein, about Maureen Comey's role as the prosecutor of those two, about the rationale for her firing that went into it. Now we're litigating in open court the Epstein scandal, right? See, as I said at the top, Trump maybe should worry less about James Comey and indicting him for some seashell conversation, and more about Maureen Comey, who's now a partner at a great firm in Manhattan, Patterson Belknap, but wants her job back in the U.S. Attorney's Office and deserves it because of the link and the linkage to the Epstein scandal. I'm Michael Popok. You're here on Legal AF, and I'm MeidasTouch. I think for this kind of deep-seated analysis, take a moment, hit the free subscribe button here, but over on Legal AF YouTube channel as well, as we're about to hit 1.2 million subscribers. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.